Okay, so welcome to the class. And this video is also have been sent in the morning, so sorry about the delay. Now, this is the website. I hope you got in your last time in previous class. And if you check why, you can see the different things you can do with Framer. You can use this for a personal website, for marketing, for a big company, small company, freelancing. Basically, people can hire you to build websites. You can be an agency that as a cooperative, as a business, and people can hire your services as a business to build their own business website. Then, of course, we also have the AI feature here where you can put in a particular prompt and let's just put this in and click start. Because I'm already logged in, watch what happens. It's going to take a bit, but it's going to create my website based on the prompt I gave the AI. So just click confirm here and just give it a bit. It's loading. You can see generating your page. And I mean, it's obviously terrible, like I told you. It's not something that is practical, but with time, we might see this technology improve and be able to do way more realistic and beautiful interface. So the prompts, you would find a prompt when you click on the layout and you check here. You see a simple landing page for a fintech platform access to loan for SMBs should contain 6 sections highlighting the benefit and value for SMBs can use the solution. There's type one mistake there. All right, so yeah, that is it. So we see we have a text here, we have an image here, we have a call to action, we have a description of what the company is about, we have some features here, we have some testimonials here. It is still loading. It's supposed to load way more sections than this. Yeah, we can see this is the desktop view. This is the tablet view. This is what it's going to look like on mobile. We can see that a lot of things are not working well, yeah, but it's still interesting to see that a technology like this exists. And I also want to make sure you experience and see this firsthand. So yes, it's still loading. Now for this particular class, I'm going to be using Framer Framer desktop. So I'm going to browse for it now. Framer desktop, right? So Framer desktop app. Now when I search for that, you would see Framer downloads. You go to Framer downloads. You can choose to use this, right? Install it. It still requires internet for it to work, but you can see you can install it on your MacBook, you can install it on your Windows, and it works just fine, just the same with the web. But why I prefer to use the desktop? Usually I use the browser as well, but the desktop you would experience less lag. So usually you have browsers situations where the browser would hang and there'll be some issues with glitching here and there. But if you're using the desktop app, basically it's an independent system and it doesn't interfere with other things. So for example, if you have a lot of tabs opened, those other tabs you have opened will weigh down on the speed of your browser, and that would impede on the work you're doing. And you don't want that. So that's just so usually of course you can close all the tabs and make sure you have a smooth experience. So we also have templates. You can go to template section on the website. You'll find templates, framework templates, and a lot of them are free. A lot of them are also paid. You can check the communities there, resources. You can check some free stuff as well. I mean, if your work is really good, you can publish it, and Framer can give you an award. So Framer awards best site per month. So we have site of the month and so on and so forth, and also nominations, feed, and pricing. So for pricing, Framer is completely free, but once you create a website with Framer, Framer would have there'll be a mock-up, basically a watermark saying Framer at this point of the website. So we'll have somewhere along this place, you would see it later on, that reads, okay, you know what, I'm just going to load one of these templates so that you can see it. All right, so let's load this preview. So if you don't pay for the premium plan, you will have made with Framer here. But that does not affect anything. You still have access to the full functionality of Framer without paying a single dime, so which is very useful. So I'm just going to close this. This video is all right. So now you can check pricing and see how that works. So if you're trying to bill a client, if that's the path you decide to take, you can easily incorporate that in your budget and your costing. So yes, now that we've talked about that, let's switch over to the desktop app. Okay. So yeah, right now you should be seeing the desktop app. So basically this is what it looks like when you've logged in. Because I've worked on a bunch of other projects on this account, you can see that I had to close a bunch of them up. But this is a new account, and you can see what we just created is exactly what we have here in this particular class um, folder. Now, the same thing, we have start with AI, we have HTML to Figma, we have paste from Figma, tutorials as well. So you can, same way we did with the from the website, we can also click on this. Just click on this and it opens a new tab. You can see this is a desktop, so you can have as many windows open of different files. So for this, you just click on the dots here and you exit tutorial. So once you do that, you're out. So I'll just quickly show you around the website while so yeah, I'll show you around the website. So there's a panel on the left, there's a panel on the right. We also have some actions, some things you can do on the top here, and also some stuff you can do at the top here. So yes, we'll be going through all those different things, and yeah, that'll be all for today's class. Then they'll be giving you a simple task to complete, and once you complete it, you share a link on the Telegram channel. So yes, so we're going to get started. So we have insert. So insert, like the word implies, you can pick something up from here and insert it into your web page. So let's say we have pages. So basically, you can create a page. A, example, we have a landing page here. We have different pages. These are basically boilerplate. Boilerplate means that they are template from Framer itself that you could start with when creating your own website. Let's say you don't have any particular concept in mind and you don't want to start from scratch, you're having some sort of blocker, or you don't know exactly where to start from, you could use any of the framework boilerplate. That's what it's called, basically template. So for the page, you click on add page, and a new page will be created, or it will be fed into the current page that needs to contain all the information for desktop, for tablet, and for mobile. So you see that everything is responsive, everything looks good, and all you need to do is to change the image, change the text, change the buttons to whatever you want, change the color if you want, change the color. Basically, just make those basic edits, and you're good to go. Now, from insert also is you don't want to create a page, entire page, and you want to just add a section. You can go to sections, drag. So if you're using your mouse, whatever is in mouse or trackpad, you click on the section that you want, drag it in. Click another section, drag it in. Let's drag it in again. Let's drag this in. Okay. Going to drag in another one. Then drag in another one. Let's drag in this one. Then drag in another one. Testimonial. Okay, let's drag in pricing. Let's drag in. I mean, we're trying to set up an actual website, right? So FAQ, in case our customers want to have some questions, we have anticipated what they want to ask, and we're going to answer their questions up front. Then we can also have a call to action. Now they've seen the value we provide, we can at the bottom here invite them to come pay for our service, and just delete this because it's double. Move FAQ to the bottom, right? Then we can also move this upwards, move pricing downwards. We need users to see every other information before they see pricing. Then we can also have testimonials, pricing, FAQ, and the eventual call to action. Now, if you notice, there is no header in this website. So what I mean by header is that when you go to a web page, let's switch back to the other place. So now when we go over to the website, you see that we have a header. This is called a header. This place we have framer, we have um wireframer. Everything here is called a header. Then at the bottom, the information we have here is called a footer. So let's go back to this. All right. So now when we get back here, what we could do is to go to navigation to insert, then go to navigation. We can then drag this in. We can paste it here. If you notice, you would find another navigation there. So we could also use this. All we need to do is to edit it later on. We'll talk about editing it in a bit, but any of them works. So let's just use this one that is not Framer. Then we can also add footer as well. So you go to insert, go down, you find footer, drag it in, then press the arrow key on your keyboard to move it to the bottom. Then yes, we have a website. So now we can adjust for different screen sizes, right? So we can, my internet just went off. I'm going to press reconnect. That should resolve it. Yes, yes, my internet is back. All right, so breakpoint, tablet, another breakpoint, another breakpoint here, phone, and now we have everything. So we will need to make adjustments to make sure that it looks good across the mobile and desktop. But now we can preview our work. So if we click on that button, the play button there, we can preview and see what we've done. So yes, you can stretch it. You can see at the point where we got in, check this place, you see we have desktop 200 and 1200. So when we click play, what we are seeing here is at 1200. We can stretch it to see what it looks like on a bigger device. You can also bring it closer to see what it looks like on the mobile view. So you can stretch it and do that and make sure that, so the purpose of being able to do this before you publish is to ensure that your website look good no matter the device your users, your customers are viewing your business, your website from. So it's very important. So now let's inspect the panels on the site. So now we're also, wait, I think we should talk about one more thing. We should talk about CMS. So CMS basically means management system. So content management system means, so now we're going to talk about CMS. CMS, you can access CMS from here. CMS stands for content management system. So we can do a lot of things with content management system, but the best way to explain CMS is by actually showing you. So we're going to move to the browser now. I'm going to switch over to, yes, let's go over to the browser. So let's say you visit a website. Let's say we visit let's say we visit this website called TopTal. Let's go to TopTal. Then we're going to go to the blog. We're just going to check a blogging site, right? So a blogging site is a very good example of just to explain and to understand what how CMS works. CMS stands for Content Management System. So we have an article here. So we have articles, a bunch of articles, a lot of articles. You can see even all the way down to 55th page of articles, right? So let's open one, right? So you're going to open one in when you sing different page, open to a different page, and so on and so forth. If you notice, the design is consistent, the positioning, everything, the image size, the text, the color, everything is consistent. Now we would see the same thing here. We have image to the right hand side, text title to the left hand side. Then same thing here, image to the right hand side, the same size and everything is the same, right? So we have it all the way down from top to bottom, and it is very consistent with the animation. The way it behaves here is the same way it behaves here. Now, how do we ensure, like, let's say now that we are the ones who are managing this company, we are the ones managing this website, and we want to make changes to the interface. Let's say we want to move this particular card from here to this place. I want to move this from here to this place. How do we do that? Are we going to make changes to this particular article and go into this article and make the same changes and go into the other articles, like about 55? So to get the exact number, we can multiply 1 2 3 4 5, then 6 7. So 7 times 55 number of articles. Are we going to multiply that much article? Are we going to open each of those articles to make the changes of moving this card to this place and moving this to this place? It do make sense. It's not sustainable. It will make our website or our platform very inconsistent. It will mean that in some pages this will probably be a little bit up, a little bit down in some pages. the color might be different, the button might be different. So how do we ensure that our design, we don't have to put in that much stress to make changes whenever I want to make changes? How do we make it easy for people to, for us to be able to create content? So that's why it is called a content management system. So managing of content on a platform, in this case, the web. So we're going to go back now to, let's go back to Framer. So now from Framer has a way of handling this. So the best example and the feature, what Framer currently supports is for blog. Now this also applies to the entire website. You could have this for the entire website, but it is particularly useful for creating blogs. So now CMS allows you to create. So now you see here, you can click on add blog, and we'll talk about that in a later class. But once you can when you have your design, so we can inspect and open the canvas here. So this is the article. This is what the page looks like for the article. Whenever we make changes to this particular article, so they're about, look at the templates here. They're about sample. The sample blog post here is about 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's go to like number 3. Let's say we want to make changes to this. We want to just mess around with this a bit. Let's say we want to adjust the space. So if I adjusted the space, just look at how much mess we've made with this. We'll go to another one. Remember what we are currently, you are currently in building. So you are currently in building a navigation component. So let's go to a different article. So now we are in a different article, but you notice that the spacing has also been affected in this article. Now, if we go to another one, you would notice that the same thing, the spacing has been implemented here. Let's say we changed this. Let's say we change this, not the content. Just close this. So let's say we change the color here. We come here and change the color to red. Right. Let's say we change the color to red, and we go to another one. You'll notice it's also red. So that is exactly how content management system works. That allows us to make those changes easily and quickly. And if you notice, we now have another page here for our blog. So that's for CMS. Now for actions, basically performing different actions, creating a new page. We can also use this button here to create a new page, publishing a website, but basically you will not might necessarily need this particular action here. So now let's talk about the site. So we have pages. So just like when we go, let's go back to the website. So let's switch back to the website. We have this is a page, this is a page, this is a page, this is a page, this is a page. So this page is different from, so let's go back to, so this is all in, this is the same platform. So this is toptal.com. So this page in toptal.com is different from this page in toptal.com, different from this page in toptal.com. Now let's go back to the tutorial, to Framer. So now if these pages are like the different pages we can have in a website. So what makes a website is a combination of pages. So a web site. So a site of webs. There's a lot of explanation I could go into to explain the definition and the origin and the meaning of when you say a website in quote. What does it mean? Uh, Epistemological meaning. I think that would be the right term to call it, but let's leave big words for big words. So now we have pages, and we have, you can see web, then we can click on the plus sign to add another page, and so on and so forth. Framer does not have a limit. I don't think I've not experienced at any point where Framer would stop you from creating a new page. You can use the free as many pages as you want in the free plan, but you would just rest assured that you would have that logo there at the bottom right corner showing that you've not paid. So once you pay, it would disappear and your website will look like you created it without using any form of no code. So now let's go to layers. So layers is basically, let's see now on this page we added let's add something to this page. Let's add a circle, a frame. So this is a frame. You can see it in the desktop. This is a desktop. Let's go back to home. Let's go back to home. Home has a lot of information in it, and to be best to explain this. So in the layers panel, we have the desktop, we have the mobile, we have the tablet. So when we click on desktop, for example, you see that we have a bunch of stuff inside desktop. Notice you can close it, you can open it, you can close it, you can open it. So all these things are inside the desktop. So if you click on this, you can see it is selected. Click on this, selected logo, and so on and so forth. So these are the different sections we have on this website. So it is called a section. So each of these things here are sections. So this is a section, the header is a section, this is a section, this is also a section, this is a section, and so on and so forth, all the way down to the bottom. So there are individual sections and sections coming together. Let me show you another example. Go back to the website, to the web, and so now let's go to the website, to the landing page. So this is a section right now. This text all the way from this success all the way down to where we have logos moving by themselves is a section. Now this particular area is a section. This is also a section. This is a section. This is a section. This section continues all the way down here because you can click on this to move between the different aspects. So if you notice, if I click on freelance, the image at the bottom here would change. So it is part of the same section. So the section starts here and end with the images. So this is also a section. Then you can see all the way down. So now let's go to and let's show you an example. This is a section. Now this could also be a section, but you won't call it a section because the heading, you can navigate between this each of this item and the content will change based on that. So you can call it a section, but you can see the whole of this area is a section because it's the same. Then this is also a section. This whole area from this all the way down to here is a section. This is a section. Then we have the footer section. So okay, this is not actually the footer section because we have this, then we now have the footer here. This is the footer itself, but we also have this section here, then this. So it's important to know that websites are divided into sections, and sections allow us to organize our website to make sure that it looks good and we can easily control things section after section. So now let's go back in. So now we've understood what layers are. We're going to move to assets. So assets are components. The best way to describe assets is components. So let's say we have something. Let's go back to the website again to give explain this. Let's go back and so now if you notice this button is green, if you hover over it, it changes to a light color. Same thing here, it changes to a light color. Then same thing here too, green changes color a bit. If you come here, changes color. So it's the same thing. So that means if we are going to create it on another page, for example, on this page, we also want it to behave the same way. We want it to have the same color. Same thing here. The button here behaves the same way, the same color, and across board. So how do we make sure that all these buttons from this one to this one to this one on this different page, they are all the same, so that we won't have some with bigger buttons, some are smaller. We don't want that. We want our website to be consistent so that when a customer visits a particular page, what they would see will be similar to what they will see when they visit a different page, but still in our platform. So for us to do that, we use there's something called components. So components allow us to create something once and duplicate it and use several times. So, but the original one we create, we can always go back to that original one to change it. And when we change that original one, all the children, all the ones we've duplicated afterwards, will also change with its button. So we're going to create a button. So for us to create a button, a component with using a button, just going to select this button and we'll right click on create component. Then you can just leave the naming the way it was. So I'm just going to cancel that. Right click again, we already have button. The text here that reads button is gotten from the name of that particular stack, which is button. So you can just leave it the way it is, and now we have a component. I'm going to take out the background, so it has a drop shadow. We're going to take that out, and I would add a hover. So when a user hovers over it, we can change the color. So we can allow it to change color, look a little bit different. So okay, so let's do it this way. And now we would preview it, but now notice now if I duplicate this button and I keep it here, whenever I go into the component and I make changes, let's say I change the color from black to, let's change it to green, right? Let's change it to green, then maybe something like this, not too bright. All right, so now let's go back. You notice that both of them are now the same color. So if I duplicate this even more and let's stretch this out. I will change it to fit content, and would also need to select all this and set it to fit content as well. All right, so now everything is showing. So now if you notice everything is green, if we go into the component by duplicating and change the color again, you would notice the same thing would happen. So let's do that. So see, everything have changed to purple. Same thing, not just the color. You can change the shape, you can change the size, you can make this bigger or make it longer. You change the font size. Let's make the font size, make it bigger, and you would see that it affects every single thing. Even if this component was in a different page, so we're going to copy this component. Let's copy this component and going to take this to another page. Take this to another page. Let's take this to the blog page, and we will drop this just here and just paste this button here. Then we're going to go back to let's go back to the home page and we'll get in again and change the color to something else. I change the color to let's change to something light. Let's change something light. Let's just keep this way. Change this from white to black so that you can see the text well. And let's go back to that page. So go back to the blog and you notice that it has affected. So basically we won't need to if we want to make a changes on a particular thing in our website, we don't need to change it across board, just need to change it once and it will be affected in all the single instance of that particular thing across our website. So yes, that's what components are. If you notice, I added a hover effect. So basically, when the user hovers over it, it should turn to white. So for us to see that in action, we can click on the play button here, and yeah. So now it loads. Now you hover over it, you see that it changes color. But you notice that it is changing color relatively fast. We can slow that down by going back to the component again. Click on the primary, change the transition to ease. Then you can add more time, make it 0.5 seconds and play that again. See, it's a bit more subtle and takes more time to review. So yes, that's how you work with components. Now components could be buttons, could be an entire section. You could make the whole of this area a component. Like for example, this is a component that you can duplicate. So because this is a component coming straight from Framer, this is part of the boilerplate that we had initially. It deactivates as soon as it duplicates, but you could also turn this into a component, same way we did with the previous one. So create a component, let's call this like section. But most times you might not have a need to turn an entire section into a component. If you don't need to do it, do not do it. You only create a component when you need it, when you're going to be using the same style in multiple pages or in multiple as part of your page, like the example I gave with the button. So you would have a button in the header, you have a button in different sections across the website, and so on and so forth. So we're going to also add the next thing we're going to work on. Next thing we're going to work on is to before we work on anything rather, we would explore the remaining aspect of the interface. So like I mentioned earlier, we have the pages here, we have the layers, we also have assets. Now, when you select on a text, on the right hand side, you'll see a bunch of information. So now we have this text selected, and you notice we have information concerning link, position, size, effect, styles, text, scroll section, accessibility, code override. So from scroll section all the way down to handoff, you are least likely to need them in your design, in your creating your website, but you would have to look out for things like text, styles, sizing, position, and link. Now, effect is relative. So unless you're trying to create an animation or something fancy, you might not need to have anything to do with effect. We'll talk about effect later on, but just to get things started, we're just going to focus on the very basics. So now, if you stop selecting, if you deactivate, for example, knowing that the text is selected, if we select outside, if we deselect this text, you notice there is nothing here. Now, if we select the text again, we can see all this information. Now, if we select the entire section, you notice that we no longer have a part that contains text. So let me select text. Now, when we select the text, we have this. You see, we have text here. We have all these different styles. But if I select the entire section, we don't have text. So you take note of that. So based on what you select, will determine the what you would see here that you can do to the thing you've selected. So when you select any particular thing you select, no matter what you select, Framer will tell you what you can do with what changes you can make to that thing you selected on the right panel. So we're going to be going through those different things that you can do with the side panel. So first, we're going to change. We're going to start from the top. So at the top here we have overlays. So overlays, when you visit the website and you will see a pop-up. So you see a fancy image or it's something really big that covers the entire website and they tell you to do something, maybe it's an ad or whatever the case may be. Yeah. In Firma, it's called overlay. So overlay allows you to have you are still in the same website, but basically a pop-up. So but for overlays to work, overlays require you to connect them to something. So now we didn't connect our overlay to something, and to a large extent, our overlay will not function. But and the way to make overlays work is that so let's say we want our overlay to work when the user selects this. Right. So when user selects this, we want something to happen and want the pop-up to appear. So we can select it and we can then activate the overlay and draw a frame around. Then let's say we give it a background color, change the fill to white, and you can see we have overlay here on the side and we have frame inside. So when we click out and we go to play and we click on this, you see that we have a pop-up. If we click out, it goes, click on this, comes up. Click out, disappears, comes up. So yes, that's what the first item we have there means. It's basically called an overlay. So next we have after the overlay we have links. So let's say you're on this page and you're trying to link to another page. You can use the link to link to a different page on the website. You can use the link to another page that is not on the website. So I'm just going to quickly grab a link, right, to youtube.com, and we can embed that link in our framer in this right here and press enter. You see now we have option to do we want it to open a new tab? Do you want it to open in that very tab? So usually if it's an external link, we want it to open a new tab so that it doesn't affect the flow of your users, basically your customers, when they are in your website. You don't want them to leave your website to another website. You want them to still stay on your website and open the external link or the link that is not exactly part of your website. Now, if the link is part of your website, of course, it means that you also have pages for it here. You could so when you come here, let's say I think we have a page called blog. You can see we can have just click blog here and set it to no, new tab, no. So it's basically not going to create a new tab. So now that we've seen overlays and link, the next thing we have is position. So for position, we have four types of position. We have absolute, relative, fixed, and sticky. So relative means that content will stay side by side each other, basically to be the way it is right now. So relative is the default setting. So the way it is at the moment is relative. Now the next option we have is absolute. We have absolute here. So when you set a particular item, this particular header stack, when you set it to absolute, it disobeys the rules of the page. Basically, it stands out. You notice that we can now move this particular text. I'm going to change the background so that it can be more visible. Let me just give it a bright color. So this is the background. I'm going to reverse this to back to the top and just going to give this a red. So now currently it is relative. You can see it's relative. Now we're going to change from relative to absolute. You notice that now it's like it's staying above everything else. it disobeys the structure that was already in place, and now it's just floating around. Doesn't have any, it doesn't stick, it's not staying beside any of the other text. It just stays on top, and you can move it to any point in the website that you choose. So that's absolute. There are instances where you would need to create, where you would need an absolute position, where you want to keep some things in a position that is absolute. This red is really, really bright. I'm going to just take this to a different color. Even this is way too saturated. Just going to dial it down a bit. So um just going to change these colors. Probably will leave it this way for this class. All right. So now just delete this extra component. Just delete this extra component here, and we are good. And also make this smaller. It's not meant to be that big, right? So we're just going to make this smaller, and yes. So now we can, beside absolute, we have other options. So one more thing, whenever you switch to absolute, we see a bunch of functions. You see now we have this here. If we return it back to relative, it was not there. But now we have, we're in absolute. You see that we have a bunch of things we can do here. Can lock it to the left, can lock it to the right and the left. You can lock it to every single position. So basically what that means is that, let's say we want this item that we selected, we want it to maintain a particular distance between the end of the page, let's say the right hand side, because this is the right side, you can see it has an arrow R here. So this R here means, and this R being 0 means that there is no space between the selected item and the end of the page. Now we could change that and say, okay, we want a 20 pixel distance between the end of the page and the content. So no matter how big or small the screen is, it's always going to maintain a 20 pixel distance between the end of the page and the content. Now we could do the same thing here and say we want pixel 20 here. You can also just say, okay, we don't want it to be exactly touching the top. And we also have the value here. So the value here is representing the distance between this content, basically this thing we selected, this header we selected, and the bottom of the page. So what we could do if we want to extend, so before we check this bottom value. Let's see what it looks like, what the implication of the spacing we've created looks like. So now you'll notice that the content does not move. It doesn't take up more space or less space than that 20 pixel distance that we have. So you notice no matter how big it is or no matter how small the screen gets, it maintains that 20 pixel distance that we previously set. So it's a very, very effective um, feature when working on creating a website. Notice how neatly it stays right there and it doesn't move anywhere. So now for this value here, if we change the value here, this height of this area of this stack will increase. So let's say we reduce this to 4,000. Currently it was 4,600. So let's change this to 4,000. So you notice that this becomes longer, and basically it is reducing distance between the bottom of the page and the content. So if we reduce that value again, let's reduce it to like 1,000, right? Let's reduce 1,000. You notice that it's now taking up almost the entire web page. So basically this 1,000 is now the space, the distance between the here and the bottom of the page. So we can also increase that value. Let's say we use 5,000. See what happens. Let's scroll back up. You notice now that the content is being pushed upwards just to make sure that the space, 5,000 pixels, is accounted for between the content and the bottom of the page. So yes, like I mentioned, something to think of and consider when working with absolute position. Now we have fixed. Fixed is going to keep your content in one place while the rest of the page scroll. So now you will not be able to see this. So, but I'm going to reduce the height of this, just going to keep it at a minimum. You know what? We're just going to return this to relatives and use a different going to use something else to explain. Okay, just going to bring this up a bit. So let's drag it, let's create this, add a header, a navigation rather. So let's grab a navigation item here, and same thing, we have position. can change that to fixed. Now, so set it to preview and let's go back and check. If you notice it's not working, so for us to fix that, we can come here, select the header, sorry, the navigation, nav bar, increase the Z index. This will make sure that it stays at the top. Increase it to a value greater than 1 and it works just fine. So now you can scroll and it continues to stay at the top from begin to the end. Then we can also explore other things there. So we've we could also do work with this with sticky also. You could stick to the top, stick to the side. You click on the plus sign and you see different areas you can stick to. So now for sticky, we are going to make some changes. So now for us to create sticky, a lot of parameters that we'll have to meet to make it work. So but we're going to make some changes to the sections we have here. So first thing we'll do is take off this column. We want to take off this column and we would set the content within it. So for the image, we're going to wrap it within another stack. You will explain why that is in a bit. Then you're going to place this, take off this, and we'll make it fixed. Then drag it into the middle. Same thing with this, we would also drag it to the middle so that, oh God. Let's close this window. Let's see if that will help this noise. All right, so for sticky, what we're going to do is we want to make the text change while the image change. So I want to use when users are scrolling through the page, we want to change the image and the content dynamically as the user scrolls. So for us to do that, we would do a little bit of dismantling of this component, this particular section. So first we would wrap the image, set the image height to viewport, and we would wrap it within a container. We'll wrap it within a stack rather. Then the stack will set it to fill. Then we will duplicate the image because we want multiple image like we mentioned. Then set it to vertical. Then next thing, because we want the image to extend a little bit longer, we need to change that so we can. This is this is need. So we're going to stretch this. We're going to stretch this to occupy more space. So just select the whole thing and change it from fixed to fit content and change this to fit content. Then it stretches. Remember, this is each of the images are set to viewport, and so it's going to take up the entire viewport. Then we can bring the content to the top. So just going to raise this up to the start here. Make sure it's in the start. Then once this comes up, next thing we will do is to inspect this. So for since we already have the content being wrapped, so we can take this off. I'll probably just leave it the way it is. So now we have this set up. So we can set, since we want the content to stick while the content to stick while the image scroll, we set the content to sticky. So the content here, which is this text, won't move while every other thing, the images will move. Then we can add a little bit of gap between each image. So just stretch that line there. And you can use this particular place to stretch it back and forth, increase the space. Then next we're going to do is to create a component. So we're going to create a component with this. So let's call this content, right? Content. Then from here we would create content variant 1, 2, and 3. So for content 1, we would change the text. So we want the text to change dynamically. So we create a variant of the text. So let's call this content 1. Then we would also call this content 2. So we'll just cancel this first. content one, then this will be content two. Do the same thing, content two. Then we would go in for content three and we'll change it to cancel this. Then content three. So content three. So we're going to now change the text for each content so that we can be certain that things are changing. So I'm going to grab the text. I'm going to grab text now and I'm going to paste it in for each one. I'm just going to paste it in here. So we're going to have content for content one, change the content for content two as well. I'm going to grab another email, another content, just a little bit of text to go in each place. I'm just going to add that to content two, and we'll do the same thing for content three. We would select it, duplicate, select, double click rather, then you can I'm just going to take a random text and place it in that very same place. So this is too long. We want it to not move beyond 2 lines, so just keep it like this. Text doesn't have to make sense. Then we can change the color so that we can also know that okay, this is actually changing. Or we can set this to color red, set this to color blue, light blue, whatever that is. Then set this to color yellow. So we've done the setting out there. Next thing we would need to do it for this to work is to make connect the both of them. So I want to connect each image. So first we're going to put an image in each of them. So let's select. Just going to grab some random images from my device here. I'm going to select and add images to each. Just going to add some images there. Network is a bit slow, so but everything's going to load in a bit. And while that is happening, we would select each image and add a scroll. Okay, my network is a bit messed up. Give it a sec to load. All right, so everything is back. So now we have all the images in their right places. We would select each image and give it and set a scroll section. So this will be image one. So img image one, right? Then select this one, same thing, scroll section image img two. Then press enter when you finish writing the name for each section. So this should be img three. Now we've fixed images for the three of them. We would select the component here, which is this one on the left hand side, then click on effect and click on scroll variant. Now we were trying to see how sticky works, but this will make it a lot more interactive using the scroll variant. So we're going to set this. So basically we want when it scrolls, this image scrolls and this all the way down to the middle, we want the content to change. When it scrolls to the middle of this, we want the content to change. So we would set it to viewport to the middle, then we want it to replace so we can scroll back and forth, either from the bottom or from the top. Then we would select the section. So for image one, we want to have the first variant, so we can add a new section. For image two, we want to have the second variant, and for image 3 we want to have the third variant. Now we've done that, all we need to do is to preview. So go to play, then scroll down. So now you notice this is not working. It could most likely be a result of having a component, a stack that is set to hidden. So we can change the overflow from hidden to visible, and once we've done that, it should work. So now let's inspect it again, and you notice that this we have this text, we have build site for any. So you notice it changes, then it changes again, and that works all the way. So same thing if you're scrolling it backwards. Notice that the text sticks while the image scrolls. So the reason why it sticks is because of sticky, and the scroll is because of the scroll variant. So basically, you've learned how to work with sticky and at the same time how to work with scroll variant. It's best it was an idea that came. Variant. So I just stop this there. So now let's inspect the other aspects of of the right hand menu, the right hand side. But you notice that while we've been working on this, each of explaining each of the different items we have on the right hand side, I've literally covered every single item here, but still going to talk about them in a bit more detail, in more detail rather. So we're just going to look at them again, continuation. So the we've talked about the position. So now for sizing, let's select this. So we have a stack that is wrapping these logos together. And what can we do with it? We can have a fixed value. So now we set this to fixed. So as long as it is fixed, if we set this, if it is fixed, and we let's preview this in fixed and see what it looks like. So in fixed, we can, okay, so for this to be visible, I'm just going to add this, give this a little bit of color. Just give it a background color, set it to red, something visible, and watch what happens. So when we stretch this, you see that it doesn't change, the width does not increase or reduce. So, but when we what's happening right now is that it's not that the background, this red, is becoming smaller, is because the container around it is covering, and that's why we have this space on both sides. But if we change that from fixed to relative and set that to, for example, 100%, it is going to take up 100% of the parent. Now this is the parent. The parent is the logos stack here. Now the logo stack has a padding of 40. So we've turned that to 0, turned that to 0. You'll see that it stretches from one end of the page to the other end, left to right. So that means that as we reduce the page, if we reduce this, it's going to reduce with it. If we increase, it's going to increase with it. No matter how large the screen is, it's always going to occupy the entire space from left to right. So next we're going to look at is the other option we have, which is fill. Fill work the same way. So unlike relative that we use percentage. So in a if we are to choose, we can also choose a percentage away from 100. So if we choose, for example, 60, if we are using 60, you notice that it's taking up just 60% of the parent. So not this, rather we are selecting this. So if we change this from relative to this, the relative to of 100 to 60%, and it occupies the space. So it's basically taking up 60% of the parent. The parent here is logo, and this is a child, parent, child. So this child here is going to look at the parent, which is logos. So logo, what is the width of logo? Logo is basically occupying the entire width of the page. So it's going to take up only 60% of the width. And if we preview now, no matter how large the screen is, it's going to consistently take just 60%. So no matter how small or large screen is, to take only 60% and would have 40% on either side. So same thing whenever you use, for example, if it needs 80%, it means that it's only going to occupy 80% of the parent. Remember, I mentioned parent. So immediate parent, if for example logos, let's say, okay, let's adjust the parent. So let's change the value of the parent to, let's make it fixed, and let's bring that in a bit. Just going to drag this in and give it a color so that it can be more clear. So let's give this a color here. And so now the parent, which is the blue background, has a particular width, or alternatively, we're going to set it to a relative of the, let's set a relative of 70%, right? Set a relative of 70%, or let's keep it at 90 so that it can stretch a little bit towards the end. So basically, this logo is going to, the parent of logos is the page itself. So it's only going to take up about 90%. So we're going to have 10% here and 10% here. So when we preview this, you would notice that, yeah, you can see that it is stretching to occupy the logos stack is only taking up 90%, and the logo themselves are taking up a proportion of the logo stack and not the page. So it's always going to look at the immediate parent. So this wrap is not going to be taking reference from the page, but it will be taking reference from the logo stack just above it. So you can see that it has the blue background. So basically, this stack encapsulates this as well. So we will have the text here and this all wrapped together by this stack. So now the same thing for the height, it works the same way. So we have fill. Fill is just going to take up every entire space, no matter how big or small the screen is. And fit content is going to fit and take up just about the space that is available. So it's not occupying the most space, it's occupying the least space. So with fill and relative is going to be occupying the most space, especially fill. Fill is going to be occupying the most space. Relative will be occupying the most space based on the percentage, but fit content will be occupying the least space possible. So it is because if for example, if I bring this in, you notice that the logo stack is getting closer and closer and closer. Basically, it's not going to be more than the space available. It's only going to take the least amount of space possible on the horizontal axis. Same thing with the vertical. It works the same way with content. And so yeah. Now one more thing, we have the layout and the styles. Now for the layout, we have the stack and we have the grid. Now, when we go to the layout panel from the actions at the top here, we click on this, we can add a stack, a frame. So, but this frame can be turned into a stack. Now, for it to turn into a stack, you right click and you click on add stack, and it wraps a stack over it. Or alternatively, you could click on the layout here and it will turn the frame itself into a stack. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages of using a stack and a frame. And so, if you are creating a website and you want content to flow from one to another, so now we have this text here, we have this image here. We are not having this text on top of this image. We're just basically having this text above the image. It can also be beside the image, so we can switch the sides. So for it to be like this, it can be beside it, can be above it, but it can't be on top of it. The reason why that is because we are using stack. If we turn off stack by turning off, we click on the minus sign here, it becomes a frame. We can then drag this text, right? So we can drag this text. Let's also set this to frame. We can drag this text to the top of this, and you see it stays. It just stays right there at the top. But if we turn this back to stack, we can't just drag it. To see what happens. It's like it's running away like a magnet. It just has to stay one side in to the left, to the right, but it cannot stay on top of above it or below it. So it's something to take note of. So that's the major difference between stack and frame. I've been mentioning that for the most part in this class, and it's important to know what it means and how it works. Then we also have direction. So when we're working with stack, we use direction. We can make it horizontal. Basically, the content is going to stay side by side. For example, let's go back to the header. We can change the header to be side by side like this. So let's go in and select the main content, and we can set it to be side by side like this. Then we can also set it to stay vertically one after the other on each other. Then same thing, we can position items in the center. So if we want it to be at the beginning or the end, so we also have align. So for align, you could move content to the bottom here or move it to the top, or it stays in the center. Now if we use fill, you set this back to fill, and we adjust the content. So let's bring this back to vertical and set this to fixed, bring it in to stay here. Then we can choose to have this start from the end or from the beginning. We can also choose to have this start from the left or from the right. So this usually change depending on the structure of the stack. So you might need to use the distribution or the align, but basically it allows you to move around either vertically or horizontally. Now, for wrap, so for us to explain wrap, we're just going to use another frame. Just going to drag in a frame here. Just going to have a frame here, duplicate it, and have a bunch of frames. We're going to set them to okay, and then we're going to also going to set it to wrap. So now when we set it to wrap and we drag from the side, you notice that what happens, it stacks just above each other. So if it as the page gets smaller, it stacks on top of each other. So that's what wrap does. It ensures your content does not. So if we turn off wrap now, see what happens. So when we close the width, you see some information is not showing. We have some information that are going out of view, but if we change that to wrap, it automatically resize and turns basically not resizing, but it changes from being stacked beside each other to be stacked above each other. So that is what wrap does. Then beside wrap, we have gap. So gap is the space in between each item. So you can see we can increase the and reduce the space between each of the black rectangles we have. And remember when I did the same thing here, you can increase and reduce the gap, right? So we can increase and reduce the gap in between the content. So we have this is the content one, two, three, and if we select the stack wrapping it, you would find an option like this to adjust it. So now next thing we have is padding. So padding is this. So padding, we could add the same amount of padding around the entire content. So if we do that, so I'm going to set this to content fit. So it occupy the least amount of space vertically and horizontally. And now we've done that, we will set a pattern to 0 and see what happens. Discover that there is no space. We just had rectangles and there is no vertical or horizontal space. But if we add like 8 pixel now, so this 8 here is 8 pixel. We notice now we now have a little bit of space around the edges from side to side and top to bottom. Now we can increase that to, for example, 90, and you notice that we have more space. Now, there's a lot of use cases for this, and you as you see. So let's inspect. Okay, so in a scenario like this, where we have content stretching this way, one way to do it is to use fixed. So if you set your width to fixed, you can stretch it in and out however you want, or alternatively, you can set the entire width and height to fit content, and all you need to do is to change the padding from 0 to a large value, and you will see your content expand. So if you want to have more vertical or horizontal height, you can come here and change the values. So the T stands for top, R stands for left, B stands for right for bottom, and L stands for left. So we can change the top value to, let's say, 200, bottom value to 200 if we want it to be more rectangular, and it begins to take shape. So now you notice that we have green lines. So if we draw the green lines, it will adjust the spacing, the padding along the vertical axis. Then if we do the same thing for the line on the side, it does the same, but only for the horizontal side. So you got that left and right is moving when we drag this. The values for left and right is moving. And when we drag this, when I drag this, the values for top and bottom is moving. Same thing, you can also drag the bottom line here, it also works. And you can also drag this here, it also works. So let's step back and if, first I'm going to just reverse this so that ensure it doesn't break what we've set up previously. All right, so now we've talked about padding. We have effects. So we're going to leave effects for later because it's a bit more complex, and this is supposed to be a first experience with Framer. So now we have styles. So styles, we have opacity. Opacity basically makes an anything you select to become less visible, so it becomes transparent. So let's select this text, right? So let's place this in the center by using this. Then we can select trusted by and reduce the opacity. And the more we reduce it, the more it becomes transparent. At some point, we can't see it again. At some point, it's fully visible. So zero is full visibility, and sorry, one is full visibility, and zero is it completely disappears. Then we have visibility. We have beside the opacity, we can also set the visibility to none. So if we say visible, no, it disappears completely. You've noticed because it disappears completely, the stack here basically takes the place of the trusted by text. But if we turn it back on, it comes back and takes up the same space. And when we turn it off, it doesn't go. You can see that we still have that text there, it's just not visible. Now we can turn it on by using this and it becomes visible again. Alternatively, we can reduce the opacity. When we reduce the opacity, you notice that this stack doesn't occupy the space, so it is still visibly there, physically there rather. So if you select, you can say select it, but alternative, but if you turn the visibility on and the opacity on and the visibility off, you is basically that text vanishes, right? But it's still available from here. You can still select it from here and turn it on. So you would have to come in and to Frame and practice this yourself. And it's preferable that while you watch this video, you are practicing. So do not just watch this video on the side without practicing. Make sure your Framer is opened and you are trying out some of these things, trying out all of these things that I'm talking about in the class. And I'm going to turn this back on. So next we have text. So if you select on a stack, if you select a stack, you will not find the text section. You notice we don't have this text section. But if we select a text, we'll have the text section. Of course, we can change the content. We can add can add more content to more text to our content. We can change the typeface, use another font. We can change the weight of the font. This particular font does not have a weight, so let's pick a different font. We can make it thicker. We can make it bold. Then we can make the bold slant. We can also it's called italics, and we can make it really tiny as well. Then we can change the color to whatever we want. We can add a shadow to it. Most likely it's advisable you don't. Then you can increase this to any size you want. So basically when you see letter here, it means the space in between each letter. So let's give this a value of 9. You notice that this text becomes stretched. If you give it a value of -9, notice it becomes really close to each other one after, but you can notice the space between each alphabet becomes really close. Now for line, best way to describe line is to move this text to the next line. You notice if we give this value, this line, this just going to I'm going to take this out of this place to explain. So you notice now that because we've increased the value of the line to 9 em, we have a lot of space between trusted and by. If we reduce this back to let's say 1, it comes together really close. So we could use em, could use pixels. So pixels is much more smaller than em. Em is so 1 em equals to about 16 pixel. So the equivalent of 9 em, so we use 9 em here. Equivalent of 9 em is somewhere around 90 pixels, not 90, a little bit, a lot. Okay, it's largely above. All right, so em we can have 99 here, and you see how much space it provides. But if we use 9 when we are in pixel, notice the space is not that much, right? Basically still stacked on each other. But preferably you want to leave it in em and just have a 1.2 em, and that would work just fine. You can bring it a little bit closer by using the arrow here, or space it a lot more by doing that. You can align to the left. So for you to understand better the align to the left, you're going to use this text. Let's use this text. So notice this align to the left. We can align to the right, we can align to the center, and we can transform this to all caps to capitalize, uppercase, lowercase. We can underline this. We can strike through as well. Now for scroll section allows us to name sections, especially when we are dealing with animations. Would explain further when we start creating some really cool animation, but for the most part, you notice that because we've named these images, giving them is a name here, scroll section, giving them a name here, we were able to create a dynamic interaction for our customers. I mean, this website looks really bad, but in an ideal scenario where we fix everything and make sure the content and the images looks right, this could the little interaction of allowing users to scroll and showing them content dynamically can be a very engaging experience. Then yes, I think that's about it. So we talked about links, we've talked about um position, we've talked about position and sizing, we've talked about styles, we've talked about text, but we've not talked about these particular styles. So styles would only you would only see styles when you are selecting a stack or a frame. So if I click on this minus sign here, this becomes a frame, and you see we still have the styles. If we click on the plus, it becomes a stack, and you notice we still have the styles. So it has the same values, so you can increase opacity, reduce opacity, make it disappear, bring it back, and change the color to whatever we want. We can add a radius, so basically make the edges more rounded. We can also turn it 360, so it turns all the way around. Then can add a border, so let's give this a bright white border, and we can also make it thick. So let's give this a value of 9. You can see we have a line just around it. You can make that line dotted, can make it a dash, we can make it double as well. So yes, we have shadow as well. So for me to show you shadow, we're going to use this particular stack in between, and let's give our shadow a white, make our shadow white so that it could be visible. Let's get to give a very large value here so that we can see our shadow come out. So we can see the shadow at the bottom here. Let's give this a, just going to make this more, the opacity, increase the opacity so that it will be visible. And of course, you are not going to be using shadow this way. Like I mentioned, it's easier to use Framer when you understand some basic principle of design, so that you can not, now you are able to create a website with Framer. You need to understand design to understand how best to use Framer to make sure the website that you can now create looks really good. So yes. So we've talked about all the way down from opacity all the way down to shadow, but we skipped overflow. So overflow. So how best way to, okay, to explain overflow, we are going to use let's go to a different page. Let's go to let's go to this page. So in this page, we're going to set, or this is a blog. We're going to create a new page, and let's add a random section. Let's add something that has a little bit of content. We're going to use this. We're going to use this, and I would grab a bunch of text and place it right there. Then we can duplicate it across. So give me a moment to grab text. I'm just going to grab a bunch of text and paste it right here. Okay. I'm going to select all, paste it in. So now we have this much text. Just going to set the height to fit, and so now let's let's have this, and we'll set the stack that is wrapping everything. We set the overflow to visible. Now see what happens. Let's change the height to fixed so that we can manually move it. When we move it, you notice that you can see that we have text showing. So this is a line. I'm going to give this a background so that it can be visible. This is a line. Let's add a background. I'm just going to add a background here. Just going to change the color to white. Remember, this is not best design practice. This is just for you to see the contrast. So now we've noticed, I'm going to give this a red color so that it can be visible on both the white and All right, so now see what happens. As we drag this up, see that we still have text showing below. Now see what happens if we change it from the overflow from visible to hidden. See, basically the text becomes hidden in it. It's like the stack is now hiding our content, which is exactly what is happening. Alternatively, we could set it to scroll. If we set it to scroll, we notice that we have a scroll bar here, which is usually not best practice. It's not the best practice unless you have a real need to use it. So now in this section, notice that we can now scroll. So we have the entire page scrolling and we have this section also scrolling. So that is what you use the scroll for. And if you set it to hidden, it would hide it. It's still there, but it's not visible. If you set it to visible, it also appears. Like I mentioned earlier, if you are working with sticky, you have to make sure that it is set to you set this particular overflow to visible. That's the only way it works. And so let's go back. Let's go back to the home page. Let's go back to the home page. So now we've covered every single item from top to bottom. We've talked covered. So next we can publish by using the publish button here to publish our website. You can invite and can explore settings, and we can also go to the we can go to this our site settings here. Let's go open our site settings. We can do a bunch of stuff here, so we can change the name. So currently we have BetaKopa, but initially on your end you would have something like untitled, right? You have something like untitled, and you can change it from untitled to have whatever you want. So in this case, we're just going to keep it as BetaKopa. So you name your file, your so basically whatever name you put here will determine what people would see when they open your website. So and it's important to make sure that that experience is as professional as possible. So you have to make sure everything is saved. So let's go to general and inspect downwards. So we make sure our site has a name and give our site a description, set the language. Then, for the most part, do not tamper with all these other settings, including, of course, unpublishing your site. You can change here the icon, and I'll show you where this appears on your website. In fact, let's do that right now. And so let's go. So now, if you notice that at the top here, we have so now you'll notice at the top here we have the Framer logo. Let's visit another website. Let's visit Beta Copper. All right, let's visit BetaKopa website. Let's check and see the same thing there. So we're just going to load this. Okay, just give it a bit time to load, and you'll notice that we have the name. So this is the name of the website. This is the equivalent of what we have in Framer here. So it's the equivalent of what we have here as the name. Remember where we at the top here we have the name, so we can have Better Copper and add a little bit more text. You see it changes here, same thing. So let's go back to the website. So from the website we can change the logo. You see this logo here is equivalent to what we have here in Framer. It's equivalent to what we have here. So you can change the favicon. It's called the favicon, and whenever someone opens your website on their tab, either mobile on their phone or their laptop, whatever device they're opening it from, your logo of your brand will appear beside it. Then we can also have the social media image, basically the preview of the website when the user opens it. Usually it looks exactly like this. We have the image, we have the link to the website, we have the name of the website. Then of course there are a bunch of other things. You can add a password to the website. So if someone doesn't have access to the website, they can't access the website. I'm just going to save everything. Then I'm going to go to domain. So domain, we can on your end, it would look like this. I'm going to delete this now. So when you publish your website for the first time, Framer would generate this, something like this. Not exactly this link, obviously, but it would generate a random link to your website. Now you can come in here and change it, and once you pay for a premium plan, you get to put in your exact domain name, but you can put in any name here. Beta, let's use BetaKopa. Okay, BetaKopa. I'm just going to use BetaKopa here, and notice that. So now, whenever we click on BetaKopa, it takes us straight to the web page. So we can click on it now. I'm going to click on it and we'll switch to the browser to see what happens. And we have this. So because I have not published, okay, so it's taking us to a different page. So we just need to click on that, takes us straight to landing page. So we can, you notice this is unpublished. So if I publish the site now, it will reflect exactly what we have in our design. Okay, so it's fully loaded and can refresh now. We're going to go back to the browser and see what we have. So we can see down that we have everything set. Of course, like I mentioned, the site is not what the website should look like, but we can see that everything is working, that our dynamic scrolling is also functioning, and we also have every other thing working, just the way we have exactly what we have in a preview. When we previewed on Framer is exactly what we have in our live link. So we're going to go back to Framer now, and going to continue with this, with inspecting the settings. So we still have a little bit more things to explore in the settings. So now we can check our stage. So we have redirects. So redirect, basically you can change a new link to an old link to a new link, so that whenever a user or a customer visits your website using the old link, it can redirect to the new link without losing that lead. Now then, here basically shows the different stages of your website, the previous versions of your website all the way down to the latest, and you can check those previous versions by loading them up. So you can, when you click on that link, it loads. So we can go back to that. You see that this is an older version of the site. All right. So we're just going to go back now to Framer, and yes. So next we have analytics. So basically over the time, because of years, months that you've launched your website, you can see the traffic, how many people have visited your website, and so on and so forth. You can see where they visited your website from, and you can see which page they visited the most. And you can also pay for premium plan here. Premium added that here, and you can do some other settings manually for each page. There's a bit of code you could add. You could add an image for each page, and you can add a description as well for each page. But for the most part, whatever I put in the general would appear no matter the page. Then let's go back to the home page. So we noticed that we went straight to site settings. We have a bunch of other things here that for the most part you will not need. You can focus on what we have in the layout in the tool itself. But what we have here is very much similar. So for example, for file, we can create a new file from here, new template, remix. So you can share this link with someone. Let's say we want, you've created a very beautiful work and you want others to be able to duplicate your work and use it as they choose. We can copy this link. You can say copy to remix link, and now we can share this link to with anyone, and they would have access to a file that looks exactly like this, which is not our own. So you would your it's not like when you share that link, people would now have access to your work and they can now edit your work. Nobody will have access to this very file. Framer will duplicate your file, and anyone with a Framer account can get that duplicate, open it, and do whatever they want with it. And there's a Framer community link called Framer Remix. No, Framer community. Okay, let's check. I think Framer community remix. Okay, you should have something. So you would see what others have done, the different stuff people have created, and you can take from their work. And as long as you understand how to use it, which you would over time, you can use. So let's select this slider. We can remix this person's work. We can see what it looks like. So if person created something really fancy and maybe we want to implement it in our website, you can click on the remix link here. It loads exactly. You can see in the link we have duplicate, so it's going to load duplicate. You can say copy project to my account, and once that happens, it will load a file that you could use to edit, and you can republish the particular work. So let's confirm and preview. We can see that you would see at this point that, okay, so click the arrow, you can see the way it works, and this is exactly what we had in the video. That's how you take, so you can edit this, change the color and use it, or copy the entire component and use it however you want in your own design. So next, in the next class, we'll be exploring much more complex aspect of Framer. But between now and then, I have an assignment for you. So let's go to all right. So this is the assignment. I want you to take I want you to use the assets we have in Framer already. So basically all these different sections, you drag and drop them into the page. You create a page, of course, in your own end, it will be the home page. So just use the home page, insert these items one after the other, and customize it. You can change the background to any particular color, change everything up to whatever color you want to. In this example, we are using purple and yellow, and you can see we have a button that's purple, text yellow, background purple, and we notice that the button is consistently purple or in yellow text. It was not implemented across board, but you make sure that across the text from top to bottom we have the same with different style from the default style we have there. So you change it, place in an image, change the text to a different text, change the color of the buttons to a different color, and so on and so forth. So that's what I want for you to do. It's very easy. You just need to duplicate, just need to all you need to do is to go in. So let's just create a new page quickly and show you briefly how that would work. So just this is a new page. Come in here, go into the section, drag stuff in, just keep dragging. Or you can either drag or you just click. When you click, Rema will put it just below the previous one. Then you can continue adding and adding and adding all the way down to the bottom. Then now you can come in and edit it. So now let's say we want to change this from what it looks like. We can add a background color, select the whole of the stack, what is wrapping the image, and let's change the background color to whatever we want. Let's use a color that looks like this. Then we can change the text so that it will be more visible. So I'm going to give you a tool that would allow you to get a better color combination that works together. So let's go back to the browser and check random A11Y. Just going to check the website really quickly. So you can use this website to get color ideas. So you can use any of the colors here that you see how they work well together and they contrast really well. You could use them as use them in your design. So for example, you could pick, let's say we want to use purple, so we can just copy this here, control, so you press Windows Shift if you're using your Windows, take a screenshot of the color, and you can come back to Framer and implement that color to make sure that you don't have issues with if your content is visible or not. So you scroll down here, let's just grab the image, remove it from there, take it back to the top, take it to the top, and we can use this color as sample. So now we can change the background of this. Instead of using blue, we can use the purple here. Let's use the purple, or let's use this color instead. Use this bright color, then we can use the purple for the text. Then we can grab color pick purple, and see that it works really well together. Then for the buttons, I want you to create a component. So we've talked about how to create a component. Create a component with it, and you can remove the drop shadow, the shadow by clicking the X here and create a variant. So for the two variants, we're just going to drag in that screenshot again. So you can use for this first variant, you use the you use a you use the bright color. So we could use the dark color instead. This is the dark color. Then for the text, we use the yellow color. Then for this other variant, we can use the alternate of it. So we can use the yellow and sorry, the green. Then we can use the purple for the text. Now we have an alternate color for the buttons. Now let's go back out, duplicate this, and let's take this out, change this from first variant to second variant, and we can change the name to learn more. So basically this is what I want you to do. Use a particular, get colors from that site, use it to customize. So I'm not trying to say as you've changed the color for this one, you change the color for all of them. You can change just the image and the button for certain sections, but just make sure that there's some sort of color you've added in different aspect of the design. So add images to these areas, change the buttons appropriately, use components. So now we've created a component, all we need to do is to copy and paste. So we can paste this in, delete the old one, paste this in, delete the old one, and so on and so forth, all the way down. So we have the same source for the buttons. We can change the text of the button to fit that particular context. So you can do that from the beginning to the end, and that is your assignment. So when if you have any issues doing this, you can always ask questions. So the same thing, you can add an image to this, just select an image from your device and just going to use the same image you've used all along, and you see it's loading and it will stay right here. Okay, so that is all. Hope you enjoy the class. Like I said earlier, if you have any questions, you can ask.